excited to be back at CoinAgenda. It was my favorite part of CES, so thank you for the invite, Michael. I'm here with Cassie, please correct me, Kopasik and Alex McDougall of Bicameral. Cassie's with Vault Logic, and Alex McDougall is with Bicameral Ventures, and of course Jeremy Gardner, who everybody heard from, is one of the great crypto pioneers who I follow closely on the FinTech Times. And today we're talking about Generation Blockchain, an interesting panel title that Michael has given us. Because when I had my panel call with these guys, that was actually a big point of discussion. You know, what does Generation Blockchain actually mean? So why don't we, for the audience, go down the line and tell the audience a little bit about who you are and what you're working on, what projects you're working on, and what Generation Blockchain means to you.
Yeah, so I'm Cassie, and I'm currently working with Vault Logic, and we're bringing an ATM and BTM all in one that also does cash as a service and has user incentivized cash balancing. So that is one project in addition to an aviation project bringing AI and blockchain to aviation. So the Generation Blockchain actually really means not so much looking at a time frame of when you were born, but actually more so your interests and your commitment, like the skills that you bring to blockchain and encouraging adoption, because it really goes back to synthesizing all the ideas and experiences that we have that develops the user experience that is really going to drive the adoption.
My name's Alex McDougall. I'm the Chief Investment Officer for a fund called Bicameral Ventures run out of Toronto. So we've raised about 30, 40 million, depending on what the markets are doing, in crypto directly. And we invest directly in crypto as well. We take early stage equity, convertible debt, token positions, hybrid positions, and as Jeremy mentioned before, you can't be a venture capital fund without taking token positions. So we invest directly in crypto as well, and then bring a big service network of developers, ICO advisors, marketers, lawyers, who are set up to also transact in crypto. So we're really trying to extend out the use case of crypto. We work with a specific network called the Aeon platform. It's an interoperable blockchain platform. So that's essentially becomes our functional currency. So we've invested in several companies. We're talking to several more on the, and some are floating around here as well. And so we're working. We've deployed capital, and we actively have dry powder as well. Generation Blockchain, as Cassie mentioned, I think we get too caught up in this is the young people talk about tech, or this is the generation that adopts tech, or these are the people that adopt tech. And what I like about blockchain is that it sort of flips it on its head a bit, and it reorients from how old you are to how willing to adopt you are. And I think this room is kind of a perfect cross section of it. It's not gender or age or anything kind of biased. It's just people who are willing to have a different way of thinking, think about a technology in a different way, and kind of move the world forward. So I think Generation Blockchain is a bit of a misnomer in terms of when you think about it from a youth perspective. It's actually just people who in all sorts of different verticals, from healthcare to finance to supply chain, to all of those people who are at sort of the tip of the evolution of it and the tip of willing to move it forward and reorient how we think about it.
Great.
Well, everyone just heard my entire life story, so I won't introduce myself. But as the person, I can say with probably 97% certainty that coined the term generation blockchain, I'll have to disagree with my panelists because I came up with the term after reading Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers. And if you read Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers, he talks about how in certain periods of time, whether it was Industrial Revolution or the PC Revolution, small groups of people, whether it's Steve Jobs, Wozniak, Bill Gates, they're all born within these very small time frames. Same with all the folks during the Industrial Revolution, whether it was, let's think, who are the big guys? Whatever, the guys are the robber baron types. I'm not going to think of all of them right now. But they are all born within about a 10-year time frame. And these are the people that become the wealthiest people on the planet. Multi-billionaires, the most powerful people in the world. And we've seen this with the PC revolution as well. The Bezos, all these guys are born with a very small time frame of one another. And so when I was looking at blockchain technology, I saw it as a revolution. And I realized that the people that were going to be able to capture and maximize the value from this technology were actually a small subset of the pioneers in this space. It wasn't actually going to be many of the older entrepreneurs that were building in the blockchain space. It was going to be the folks like Vitalik and my co-founder Joey, and these really young people that have grown up in a post 9/11 world in the wake of the Great Recession, totally digital lifestyles, and just fundamentally get blockchain technology in a way that someone that lived before the web can't really fully comprehend. Where digital value makes just as much sense as tangible physical value, such as gold. You know, a lot of the early adopters of Bitcoin were gold bugs and libertarians, and that's not what appeals to generation blockchain. It's this idea of a frictionless protocol for the transaction of value. That is what makes generation blockchain different from other blockchain evangelists and entrepreneurs, and that's why I ended up coining the term.
Okay, great. All right. So now the key question, and I've been writing a lot about this. Actually recently covered Jeremy's remarks at San Francisco Blockchain. So, you know, what's the killer DApp? What is going to bring the first billion people onto blockchain? How are we going to get to mass adoption? If 2017 was the year everybody raised money, and 2018 was the year we kind of pulled back and focused on infrastructure, 2019's got to be the year we get everybody on chain. So, you know, maybe starting with Jeremy, if you want to share with us your thoughts on what you think is going to bring the first on.
The first 100 million users of blockchain technology or crypto assets are going to buy them. The first billion are going to earn them. Whether it's micro work or NFTs, that is how we're going to get to the first billion users. It's people that are doing mechanical Turk-like tasks over the web for random web developers, for random companies around the world. They're able to receive small micro payments in cryptocurrency and able to earn those cryptos, hopefully from their smartphone. That's probably the most promising way. And then secondly, I think the way we'll see mass adoption in the developed world will be through NFTs. These non-fungible tokens that can be earned in games. They can be upgraded and have real-world value. They're massive in-game economies today, but they're not exchangeable outside of the game. You're really not supposed to be able to sell them outside of these games, whether it's Counter-Strike or Fortnite. But these informal economies exist. Formalizing that economy through non-fungible tokens and allowing interoperability between games will spawn a $100 billion plus industry and will bring, you know, hundreds of millions, if not billions, of users on board.
So, you know, at San Francisco Blockchain Week, Gary Tan got on stage and said that actually his partner Alexis went down to speak to the guys at Epic, and you know that they're making the top games are making $1 million a day. Some of them, like King, are making like $4 million a day on their franchises, and they have hundreds of millions of players that are actively engaged. So I asked Epic, what are you guys doing on blockchain? Are you guys going to be bringing NFTs? And they're like, no.
No, there's not a chance on the planet. If Fortnite can make $400 million in a month, why the fuck would they use an NFT? I mean, there's absolutely no incentive. The way this is going to work is that independent game developers are going to create games that go viral and interoperate with one another, and it's going to create this economy around all these non-fungible tokens that exist on more indie games. And then eventually, it will get so popular that the mainstream game developers will be forced to adopt, but there's no way they're going to be the ones to adopt this tech first.
Right, they're very entrenched. The top publishers are not going to be the ones driving.
They're just making too much money. There's no incentive.
And the interim spot, though, is there's APIs that build on top of all of these games that take out game data and that take out actual results and in-game actions. And you can turn those into oracles, and you can build projects that essentially look across a bunch of different games. You can generate value for player versus player gaming, player versus player gambling, run multi-aspect tournaments, have developers be able to look into their game and see who's playing like what and what profiles are playing, and directly incentivize the people who are playing the game in a certain way, and do testing that way. You can have advertisers hyper-granularly look at who's playing and what type of targets they want to do, and sit on top of those games. So yes, it'll end up being created, the games that'll actually be created, but you can do that right now with the APIs that are shooting out aspects. We're invested in a project that has brought together kind of a couple million users that used to have a messaging app that was just sort of a way to message in between games, but is implementing this sort of in-game economy of how to generate real world. And to get back to your question about what sort of is going to be the DApp that drives mass adoption, I think we create so much data, even when we're walking around in the real world, or when we're doing anything online, or when we're taking transportation, or riding bikes around, or walking. All of that is valuable data. 80% of it just gets frittered off into the world, and a bunch of other goes to these centralized data hubs that essentially sell it off on the back end, on our back. So what's going to be the killer DApp is if you can abstract away the blockchain layer and find a way to reward me for the actual value that I'm creating in the world. And a lot of it is the oracleization of things. A lot of it is figuring out how to actually micropayment and trustlessly transact on a level that we can't do in the fiat world today. But it's that way to say to somebody, you don't have to actually go and earn a paycheck. What you do in the world is valuable, and we're willing to compensate you for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the monetization of data and flipping the data paradigm that exists today on its head is going to be a massive driver of adoption, but that's the medium to long term in my view. I mean, who owns data? Facebook and Google. You think they're going to go somewhere? Like, they're going to just let this happen? They're not going to lay on their backs. That is not a market that's going to be taken easily or without a fight. And so that, to me, is a 10, 20-year time horizon where people can actually take ownership of their data. I think we'll see it in healthcare much sooner than we'll see in general online data. But in the long term, I think you're correct. But that's much farther out than immediate mass adoption.
Sir, last quick point. Totally agree with you. I think for existing data that can be captured today, but I think blockchain also gives you the ability to create and expand the data set and have that be directly transacted.
Yeah, but we still haven't figured out privacy on the blockchain,
Agreed.
so this is not something I want people trying to do yet.
And Cassie, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, back to what you were saying, I mean, it really goes back to gamification and actually making the digital assets that or digital rewards that you're acquiring from like NFTs, or it needs to be something that people are able to like use and there's a purpose behind it. In addition to, I think that there really needs to go back to lowering the barrier to entry as well and allowing people to physically interact. I know Andreas Antonopoulos was saying that we need to improve the user experience of our wallets, exchanges, and ATMs and make those available so people can physically go and purchase with cash, get orientated to using cryptocurrency, and then being able to then turn around and use it right away. And then adding the additional layer of like gamifying that. So they're incentivized to do it.
As much as I respect Andreas, I at this point, 5 years in or 10 years into Bitcoin, I just can't possibly fathom that a better user experience is going to make people want to use Bitcoin. People don't have a reason to use Bitcoin. So they're not, just because it's easy to buy, like I can probably easily buy like a piece of shit from a homeless person, but it doesn't mean I want to do it. The user experience is there. I can definitely go do that, but it's not something I want to do. And so until we give people a reason to buy cryptocurrency and use cryptocurrency, it doesn't matter how easy we make the experience, they're just not going to do it.
You know, Jeremy, we had a great conversation about living on chain. So there's I have a friends in Puerto Rico, and there's a whole community in Puerto Rico that doesn't use any fiat. They're just completely living off, Bitcoin and Ethereum, even if it's by barter. Not all the merchants accept it, but they found a large percentage of merchants accepting it, including Uber riders, Uber drivers, and so forth. And their theory is the more that they use it, right, in their community, and the more they create communities that can use it, the more we're going to be able to bring everybody on board. And so these two, Cassie and Alex, Alex is invested in a company called Vault Wallet, and Cassie's company Vault Logic, actually have a solution for helping U.S. citizens who have to live under this egregious tax code that says that we have to report every single crypto transaction, even if it's just $3 for an ice cream cone in Maui. Everything has to be reported. So for tens of thousands of transactions in the U.S., Alex has kind of a TurboTax solution for just, I guess, maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you're going to be able to get people living on chain in the United States.
Sure, and I mean that's the roadmap, is essentially to be the mint for crypto for this project. I mean, in the short term, it's essentially a wallet application that has human readable contacts like Venmo. It's easily white labelable into platforms to abstract that extra layer away of key management. But it's the short term kind of barrier to entry of hacking adoption in that way. And you need to have an ability to kind of, if you are going to expect people to run their lives on crypto, which maybe isn't the end goal in the end, you need to have a way to kind of replicate the tools that we have in the current world today. And so that's a little bit what these guys get up to.
So the problem with these solutions is that they solve the how, but they still don't solve the why. Totally. It's like, why do you go and use crypto? Yes, now you've made it easy to do, but why do you do it? Why does somebody want to move the cash that they earn in their job into crypto so they can spend it in a store? And you can say, oh, well, they're discounts. And you know, that's great, because actually a lot of merchants today, if you get them signed up on brick and mortar or online, say, hey, I'll pay you with crypto, where there's no refunds, they'll be like, great, there's no chargebacks? Like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then guess what, as a consumer, you're faced with, wait, I now can't get a refund. I can't charge back this shitty product that I bought because I paid with crypto. And then you have to institute chargebacks. Then all of a sudden we've recreated the same system that existed before. And so this is my problem with crypto payments in general, is that we're not actually solving any real problems unless you're buying drugs off the internet. I mean, that's a great use case. But they're not actually that many great use cases for crypto unless we're talking about remittance and payment rails and back-end solutions. So blockchain technology and crypto assets are almost always better used in the back-end. This is what I was saying on the last, during my fireside chat, and I'll reemphasize this now. I really do not see a future in which consumers are interfacing with crypto assets and cryptocurrencies until, and this is a big asterisk point, until we move to cashless societies. We'll first see this in China, then we'll see it in Russia, and what we'll see is a total removal of cash from society, and all of a sudden people will not be able to transact anonymously. There will be no more financial privacy. And when that happens, we will see actual mass adoption of cryptocurrencies for payments, first in authoritarian countries, and then when it happens in the West, which it inevitably will, probably 20, 30, 50 years, then we will see the mass adoption of crypto assets for payments. But until then, I don't see it happening.
I just want to give Cassie a chance to respond.
Sure.
Sorry, Alex.
Yeah, and I wanted to just circle back on your point by bringing Andreas. I wasn't just talking solely about Bitcoin. I was actually agreeing with you that it does go back to interoperability and exactly like you're saying, having it so that you're actually using cryptocurrency, but you're not feeling as though you're using it. It's just on the back end, but you're still seeing the usability of using, or like actually engaging something that is digital versus just traditional with cash or card, but you're getting the benefits of, there's the interoperability and the fact of the just digital assets can be transferred much quicker, and yeah.
Cassie, you have 10 Bitcoin machines, or you have 10 BTMs in
Right.
San Francisco right now. One's at Node. What do you see the volume of transactions? Like what Jeremy was saying, there has to be a reason why people would want to use the currency. Can you comment on that?
I mean, it really goes, in the terms of like ATMs, it really goes back to, it's a physical location that people are familiar with. So it goes back to that, having like a frictionless experience of at least just engaging it for the first time. And that's the whole point behind it, because right now, if you are just going via an exchange, there's a lot of like barrier to entry, and it's something that not everyone's familiar with, whereas everybody's familiar with using an ATM. So that's kind of the concept of why that would drive someone towards using an ATM. Furthermore, if you're offering traditional cash services, then you're getting the benefit of both. You're not just locked into just having the digital asset. You can sell it and then use it for your cash services.
And you
So
guys are
can-
moving into malls, right?
Right, right.
But what's the current volume on your beta group right now?
That would be, I guess, it's there's a lot of variance but I would say that, you usually predict that you have, at least probably on a, relatively normal volume would be like, 100 transactions a month or something like that.
Okay.
So just
They're doing
depends
it for
on how much you're
investment
actually-
purposes.
Right, how much you're actually promoting that location too makes a huge difference. Yeah.
I just want to give Alex, you had one more comment on it, and then.
Just
the
back
last question.
to the wallet thing, and I totally agree with you that it's the abstraction away from the actual, like, I'm holding Bitcoin in this wallet, and I'm going to go into this coffee store, and I'm going to buy coffee with it. But you need those kind of white label solutions that fit into the back end of dApps if you're going to turn a game into an oracle and earn micropayments for doing things. And you also need those wallets to be able to be flexible enough to hold your data profile. And agree with you, we haven't solved privacy yet, but having somewhere that's at least a user interface to store your potentially anonymous data profile and use that to go from dApp to dApp and earn micropayments for doing certain things, that's sort of the road towards, I call it kind of the archetype of one, where you are an entirely fully formed digital being on the internet, but completely anonymous, and having these sort of next generation wallet solutions that allow you to hold all of those things in a flexible UX, behind the scenes way, I think is key to actually bringing this kind of 10-year thing that we're talking about into reality.
Well, this has been a great discussion. We actually have so much more to talk about, but I don't want to take away time from the audience. So does anybody have a question that they'd like to ask the panel? That gentleman over there. I think we have time for this one question.
Yeah, so my name is Niels. Quick question for you guys. The topic being about Generation Y and Z and adoption of dApps. But don't you think the real issue and the real challenge is to actually go back to the CIOs of this world, the people with the gray hair, and basically make use cases in vertical segments to actually apply blockchain and make life better? I mean, I personally think that the adoption comes from solving business challenges more so than a user interface that makes crypto great. I mean, do you guys do any work around, for instance, telling CEOs for instance, in the shipping industry that they can use blockchain without them even knowing they use blockchain? They will skim half the lead time of a container from China to Europe, for example, because that's actually, I think the dApps, these are the dApps that will actually drive the adoption in this world.
So I went on a violent tirade about this at Money 2020 yesterday. So I'm gonna save my emotional bandwidth for something else. But I'll put it this way. 2 years ago, everyone was talking about enterprise blockchain, private blockchains, blah, blah, blah. And it was the biggest thing, main stage at Money 2020, biggest fintech conference in the world. Everyone was just lauding, oh, the blockchain for enterprise, blockchain as a service. And guess what happened? Nothing. Literally nothing. I mean, it has been such an exercise of bullshit. I wasted time on the behalf of startups. I can't even tell you. There are good enterprise use cases, but what all these enterprises are learning is that it undercuts their business. It hurts their bottom line because they're all middlemen. And so blockchains get rid of the middlemen. So if you're a large enterprise, you're probably making money by ripping people off. And blockchains disintermediate those middlemen. And so I think, yes, there are great enterprise applications for blockchain technology, but the CIOs, they'll go pay for a proof of concept, and I've had what were some of my best portfolio companies at Blockchain Capital make a bunch of money off of those proof of concepts, and then guess what happened? They got thrown away because they're like, shit, this hurts our bottom line. And it happens every single time. That's why every single major enterprise blockchain startup that you saw 2 years ago has pivoted away, shut down, or been acquired. IBM is left.
Any other questions? We'll do this one last question. And again, the speakers are going to be around. So if you guys have some other questions, go ahead and find them. These are all great topics that we could all listen to for a very long time.
You guys stay on stage for a second.
Hey, my name is Josh Berger. I'm with Vault Logic in Mantle. But wouldn't you agree? I agree with what you were talking about that there needs to be a reason to use blockchain. But I mean, looking back in the history of one-click what Amazon pioneered and Zappos pioneered for the ability to return items without any questions asked. Isn't that kind of the next iteration of what that brings is through blockchain technology and being able to provide that ease of use with currency?
Yeah, I would just say that in reference to what you're saying, I do agree that when you have the middleman, but the whole evolution, Josh, like you're saying, is that we're actually moving to where if you're a middleman, then you're moving to a new stage of where that value that you provide can be monetized in a different way. And for sure, this is the whole evolution of using blockchain is to make for more efficiency, more transparency, and to be able to monetize more tasks versus just having these tasks that not everyone is, I guess there's not as much, you can add more value in other ways.
When blockchain technology is successful, there won't be middlemen.
Right. I mean, middlemen are a proxy for trust because we don't know each other in the same room. And what blockchain can essentially do is remove that proxy for trust and allow you to trust the transaction itself rather than each individual actor on both ends. So I agree with you, and everything's an evolution, so we'll certainly see kind of these intermediate steps towards it. But in kind of the long run, it is that decentralized logic that allows me to trust a transaction versus an actual actor as well.
And the biggest disintermediators so far actually have been the middlemen because they've done these proof of concepts. I mean, the reason why blockchain technology is here where it is today is because the banks were like, oh, blockchain's not Bitcoin. And they really shot themselves in the foot on that one because they legitimized this technology as a whole and then realized that you can't really have a blockchain without Bitcoin or another crypto asset. So thank God for the middlemen because they just keep on screwing themselves over.
Let's give our speakers a big round of applause. We're going to bring Olga back up to the stage so that she can do her presentation on tokenization. So we're going to swap out a little bit on your schedule and put her ahead of the upcoming panel of influencers.